probably wondering why I want to sell this boat if it's so fabulous. Because I got a bigger boat.
And here she is, the way she was when I first found her on Dead Boat Row about 8 years ago, filled with junk. It has been sitting there for 10 years, waiting for the right person to come along and fix the rotten bulkheads. And here she is today, 8 years later. And here it is down below. Well, when I first started to fix it up, as you can see, the bulkhead was still pretty rotten, so I kind of beefed it up a little bit, but I needed to actually do something about it because it certainly wouldn't take a lot of strain the way it was. So I ripped out the bulkheads very carefully, trying to preserve the shape, leaving a mess behind. But you know how it is, once you start, it's like, oy vey. What have I gotten myself into? You're committed to fixing it. And how? So I dragged the bulkheads out and tried to trace a pattern on cardboard. Then I take the cardboard inside and try and get a better fit. And since I wanted an open cabin, I did half bulkheads. So then I cut the bulkheads, put them in, did a fit test, and they fit pretty good. Oh, I'm getting too old for this shit. In order to keep the mast up, without a full bulkhead, I had to make a compression arch. And of course, with all the new bulkheads, I had to get trim and cut it all to shape. So of course, it would fit on the bulkheads and trim it very nicely. Looking pretty good. And now the new bulkhead is permanently in, along with the compression arch. I put in ceiling, which on a boat is on the wall. Ask a sailor why. We have a different word for everything. And the ceiling looked pretty good. And of course, you know, had to paint the hull. And that paint job looks good. So now it's time for me to put a little decorative cove stripe on the boat, inch by inch. And of course, there's bottom painting, and bottom painting, and even more bottom painting, until you get the entire bottom painted. Pulling off the tape. And now I'm going to do the non-skid on deck. Tape it up, then paint the areas I want to paint, and ta-da! It looks good, and more importantly, it keeps you on the deck from falling over the side. And I ran all the lines back to the cockpit. Beforehand, you had to go to the mast. And it works, look at that! And the next project was a bowsprit, anchor platform. I hated anchoring without that platform. So I made a couple of mock-ups. I'd take them to the boat to look at it to see if it actually would fit. And now the real thing. Clamped and laminated together. Pieced together for the first time. And installed on the boat. And it worked beautifully. As you can see, it's a work of art. And here it is, under sail. Doing its job. It's also a nice spot to stand and look back on the boat. Looking good. All that painted non-skid. She maintains direction beautifully, nicely balanced. The next project was the seacocks. Had an old gate valve which was frozen, so I ripped that out and put in new seacocks for the sink, because the old owner, all he did was plaster over the old seacock from the outside of the hull and cut the hose, the drain hose from the sink, totally free. So I'm installing the new hose, I'm installing a foot pump, and now the next project after that was cockpit doors. I hate slats. Doors are so much easier. So I made the doors and installed them, and looking pretty good. Next was the ladder. It had steps down into the cabin which seemed to take up half the cabin sole. So I made a typical sailboat ladder, and it fits so much better than the steps that were there. Next came a cockpit grate that somebody was tossing out because it was old, rotten, and missed pieces. So, of course, I fixed it up, sanded, varnished, augmented it to fit the cockpit, and there it is, looking good. And the transom bothered me with that open cut where the outboard would normally go, but the outboard was actually on a mount. So I decided just to fill it in temporarily with a wood plug that's easily removable if you just take 4 screws out. But when it was done, it actually finished it off rather nicely. So here it is at anchor at my favorite anchorage for sunset. And sunsets are my favorite time of the day at anchor, spending the night in a nice sheltered cove. The boat was featured in Good Old Boat magazine. That's the cover picture from the anchorage that I like to drop a hook in. All right, let's go sailing now, raising the main. Arr! Now it's time to raise the jib. All lines coming aft to the cockpit work so much better. Now we're under sail. And if you've never sailed before and you're looking at this, this is why we sail. Yeah, hello there. Oh, who's that old guy? Oh, that's me. There's a certain magic of being under sail and having a nicely balanced boat so you can kind of wander to the bow, to the stern, while she's under sail. I fly the Conch Republic flag because I used to sail the Key West. And the home port is Devilfish Key.
And this is what it's all about. Go forward.
Now, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I want this boat to go to a good home. I'm not really interested in making a lot of money. I just want somebody to enjoy it the way I have. But I'm intending to possibly live on board the new boat and sail it just about anywhere. Okay, time to drop the main and head on in. And there she is, at anchor off the beach. It could be yours, $1,500.